I am the Democratic Committee Person of Leyden Township, and I'd like to welcome you to the 80. What is the 80? It's a Cook County Democratic podcast about our organization, its candidates, and its leaders. We're currently interviewing the party's endorsed candidates for the June 28th, 22 primary, so you can learn more about their backgrounds and their unique stories. Today, I'm excited to be interviewing Judge Ruth Gudino, and she is, believe it or not, an exciting person because she makes the law come alive. Now, I know what you're saying. An interview with a judge, how boring could that be? But you should stick around because Ruth is really an articulate person who has fun with what she does, but she is serious about what she does. So, Judge Ruth Isabel Gudino, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Committeeman. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me this morning.
Now, I didn't know Ruth until about 6 months ago. My police chief, Mike Witz, introduced me to Ruth and said, she is a great state's attorney, and she is someone that we want as a judge because she recognizes both sides of an issue and only brings those cases that have a great meritorious characteristic to them. So, Ruth, you've been a Cook County State's Attorney for a number of years, and you are the supervisor of criminal prosecutions in the 4th District of Maywood, right?
Yes, I was there up until October of 2021, right before my appointment by the Illinois Supreme Court to the judiciary.
And what was that like?
The appointment?
And what was it like being the supervisor of prosecutors at Maywood?
It was phenomenal. I actually miss it. I worked with 24 great law enforcement partners in the western suburbs, and we really dug our feet into the ground to make sure that we were doing the right thing with focusing on keeping our community safe. And I got to meet every single one of my chiefs, including your chief, and figure out what each of our local communities needed because each community was unique. It was having your finger on the pulse and actually making a difference where I lived for the people I lived with. So it was a great experience. Miss it every day.
And you don't live far from Maywood. You live in Westchester, but you didn't grow up in Westchester. Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised until about kindergarten at the back of the yards. My father then moved us, my mom and my brother and sister and I, to Market Park, to a Lithuanian neighborhood where I went to Nativity BVM.
And you said you were the first family of color there?
Yes, we lived right across the street from Market Park. We were the first Hispanic family. When I went to school, everybody's like, Ruth Gudino. My name became Ruta Gudinaitis, which is Lithuanian for Ruth Gudino.
And you learned Lithuanian?
Yes, I went to an all-Lithuanian grammar school, Catholic school in Market Park.
And do you still speak Lithuanian?
I know how to say the basics, hello, goodbye, and pray a little bit when necessary.
Well, for a Lithuanian friend, say hello.
I think that is, Prashau and Achu, those are the two I know.
And then you moved from your family moved from Marquette to where?
To Justice, Illinois, on the southwest suburbs.
And I was reading your resume. I was really surprised. You were actually a firefighter. You went to the firefighter academy?
Yes. So out in Justice, there is a fire park district called Roberts Park Fire Protection District. And in 1999, my mother became ill and she would complain about me being home taking care of her. She wanted me to live my life, and I was a state's attorney at the time. So I happened to come across a posting that they were doing the academy for firefighters, literally down the street. I went and I applied. I think they were fascinated, one, that a chick was trying out and that I was a prosecutor. So another young lady joined our class. I was the first female Hispanic. I had another female and about 7 or 8 other males. 6 months academy, graduated. Funny story about my graduation, I was actually in the hospital getting my leg in a cast because I had fallen through our practice house rotation floor. So my graduation picture has my jacket on with my last name. But it was great because the guys kept an eye on my mom. My mom didn't think I was staying home to take care of her. And I got to learn how to be a firefighter and save people's lives and people in our community in a different way.
And did you ever respond to a fire?
Yes, a lot of fires, a lot of meth labs, a lot of car fires. It was out in the Bridgeview, Justice, Hickory Hills area.
Meth labs. So So you went out as a firefighter and found a meth lab, and then as a
Yes.
prosecutor, did you prosecute that case?
That case went out to Bridgeview, thank God. That would have been a conflict. But yes, it was interesting to see how meth could blow up in a trailer home and cause a lot of damage and, hurt a lot of people. So it was interesting to see it on the fire side and then interesting to see it on the criminal side.
So we skipped a couple steps because you graduated from high school. Where did you go to college?
Graduated from Marietta High School on the south side, went to UIC. That is now called the UIC John Marshall. It has the law school there. I then went to the University of Iowa. I was the first.
How did you end up in Iowa?
Full academic scholarship. I was
Oh,
first.
the money.
Yes. Iowa was about 3 hours, so it was a safe distance from home. So I could still come home and see my mom and dad and get my laundry done and get groceries. Went there, was the first female Hispanic in my class. So that was kind of interesting. Iowa definitely was working towards diversity. So it was interesting to be in a school that was in a very cold area. I thought Chicago was cold. Iowa is definitely cold.
Yeah, the
Iowa
wind
City-
blows across those cornfields.
Oh, yes. And it's a lot of open space. It was great to be out there, became a Hawkeyes fan. And then
Now,
came
after
back
you
home.
graduated Iowa, you didn't become a state's attorney right away. You did a couple of
No.
other things.
Yes, I actually worked for the Public Guardian's Office. And I was recruited to the state's attorney's office from the Public Guardian's Office when I was in abuse and neglect.
And a public guardian, that's a pretty important position. What are some of the
Oh,
things you did there?
Yes, I always wanted to work with children. I thought the children is our future. And so I worked with a lot of abuse and neglected children, and I was their voice in the court system. I spoke for them when no one else would. And I had their best interest, as well as was their best interest to be reunified, or was their best interest to be put into the adoption process?
Well,
And
those are tough decisions, huh?
they were, and it was tough when you saw a lot of abuse. And then you saw parents that were split, that really loved their children and really hurt their children. And it was trying to decide how to less affect this child and give this child some stability so they could be successful.
And then from there, you were recruited to the state's
Yeah.
attorney's office because you were so good that they thought, we want her.
Yes, I was the first class under Richard Devine. He hired his first class of laterals. So I came in March of '97. No regrets at all. It was an opportunity that I didn't know existed. To become an assistant state's attorney was huge. Everybody was like, what is that? They're like, do you defend the criminals? I'm like, no, it's the other side. They're like, well, why do you do that? I'm like, because just like there are people who are of color, who are criminals or offenders, there are victims of color, and victims that are women and children. And
Right.
I wanted to be there for them. And it was being bilingual was a greater asset for them, because in talking with victims whose primary language was Spanish, you get a little bit more of a connection and they become more comfortable and open. So I loved it.
After being a state's attorney, the Supreme Court said, hey, this person is really good. This is the type of person we want to judge. And surprise, they contacted you and said, we want you to fill out this information. And lo and behold, you were appointed a judge.
Yes, but before I did that, I took a small break because I wanted to focus on getting married and so forth. And I joined the UAW General Motors Legal Services out in Burr Ridge, which I often tell people was my dad's happiest moment, not becoming a lawyer, not becoming a state's attorney. It was being part of a process. He was a UAW General Motors employee.
Yes.
And they did not know that they had legal services, he and his friends, until I got there. And being bilingual, we had the floodgates, and every one of his friends who worked on the line came in, and we had wills and estate planning and purchasing of homes and repairing of credits and even giving criminal advice and traffic advice. So that was my dad's proudest moment.
And
After
we
a while,
know that there's no middle class without unions.
no, and I was raised in a union home, and
So was
with
I,
that-
and proud of it.
Yep, that's what gives me the great education, right? And the great foundation of hard work and commitment. And if you want to be different and make a change, you've got to be the example of it.
So we've
then-
had a substantive conversation up until now,
Yes.
but they want us to have fun. So I'm going to ask you some really frivolous questions. And that is, who is your favorite Chicago sports team?
So I'm going to have to
Name
say
them all
my-
so you don't offend anybody.
White Sox and the Cubs, but I'm going to be, my favorite team is actually grammar school softball team that I coached out in Westchester. I coached my daughter for 8 years and I became in love with softball and teaching it. And so I have to say my favorite local sport is the Westchester girls softball team.
So you're a Latina who grew up in a Lithuanian school. Do you sing Lithuanian songs?
No, I do dance Lithuanian dances, and I love, they used to have these, I forget what they were called, but the Lithuanian food, we used to eat a lot of it. They were like little pockets with meat inside
Pierogies?
them. I think they were similar to pierogies, yes.
Okay.
And I learned a whole different culture than my own, and it was kind of nice because everyone accepted me and we learned from each other.
What kind of music do you listen to?
I like mariachi music. It reminds me of my mother. I like Tony Bennett. That reminds me of my father. The classical music where you can understand the words and it has melody and it has emotion.
That's good. Any pets?
Yes, we actually, contrary to my better judgment during COVID, my children kept saying we wanted a pet. So I thought, all right, we're going to do a rescue and I want a chocolate lab. I was very specific. And a very good friend of mine who fosters for Magnificent Mutts somehow, lo and behold, found us a chocolate lab. And so there was no turning back. And we've had her for 2 years this June. She's a blessing. She brought our family together during COVID. We take lots of walks. She has this personality and she is definitely part of our home. Her name is Dulce Sol, which is sweet sun in Spanish.
And listeners don't know it, but you made sure that that beautiful chocolate lab was taken outside before we start a podcast. Otherwise, she'd be up licking your face. I've had Labradors. They are the best dog in the world.
They're very loyal.
How about your favorite Chicago food? Are you a Chicago foodie?
I'm a tacos foodie, any kind of taco. I love tacos from all the different places in Pilsen, Little Village, down in Melrose Park, Stone Park. You give me a Comales steak taco with onions and cilantro and homemade avocado all day long.
Araceli's in Franklin Park has, according to the Mexican consulate, the best tamale in the Chicagoland area. Have you ever had a Gina Jude's hot dog?
No, I did not.
Okay,
I have had a Chickies hot dog.
Landmark on the northwest side.
Well, Chickies is a landmark on our side.
What is it on your side?
Chickies hot dogs on Roosevelt.
Oh, sure, yeah. What's your favorite way to relax, or do state's attorneys and judges relax?
So I'm hoping to learn what that means if I am successful with this election. I've had a sample of it, which is really nice, just sitting in my backyard with my kids, my 16-year-old daughter and 13-year-old son and the puppy, and actually watching movies on our projection screen and enjoying a nice summer evening, which hopefully we will do much of.
I just thought of something. Yes. Preparation for a day of work as a state's attorney is probably a little bit different than preparation to be a judge every day, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The day with the state's attorney never ends. I was on call as a supervisor for the 4th Municipal District 24/7. The day of being a judge starts at a certain time and ends at a certain time. And yes, you're on call sometimes, but I'm able to come home and just focus on my family. I think they want to have dinner without me constantly checking the phone or excusing myself to participate in the conversation with them. So yes, it is a completely different lifestyle.
I run into many candidates for judge, and it's kind of different because you're expected to be completely impartial as a judge, and yet you have to go sort of hat in hand and ask a whole bunch of people for support because you're running countywide in 50 wards and 30 townships. What's that like?
It is difficult, amazing, interesting. I think you have a range of emotions. I don't think I've ever driven as much as I have these last 7 months. I think what is interesting to let people know is that judges affect you most than any other politician. Right. You will see us in traffic court. You will see us in divorce court, claims court, disputes, contracts, sometimes even on matters that could affect your liberty. And while that is being said, it is our job to listen to the facts, apply the law, and make a fair and just ruling. And I think my 26 years of legal experience, my 50 plus, I won't say how many up beyond that, of life experience of being a mom, a student, all of that isn't lost with me. It comes with me to the bench, and it makes me ensure that I treat people better than I want to be treated, because they deserve respect.
So Ruth Gudino is going to be on the ballot June 28th. And usually our primary is in March. It's probably a little bit easier getting out and doing things now than it would have been in January, February.
Yes, a lot warmer.
What is your favorite season?
My favorite season is spring, but I think we skipped it this year. I think we went from winter to like summer really fast.
In a blink of an eye. Why
Yes.
why is spring your favorite?
It is the start of everything new. The smell of the fresh flowers, the growing of the new grass, the blooming of the trees, everything is waking up from a slumber. It's like a new start, fresh air, new beginnings.
So besides being done with the campaign on June 28th, what are you
Yes.
most looking forward to this summer?
So my son graduates 8th grade and my daughter is going to be a senior. So we are going on our first family trip in years. We're going to New York.
Good. Don't tell us when you're going to leave. Otherwise somebody will try to break in.
No, we're going to have a great time. We're going to go to plays and see, regular landmarks, and then just reconnect as a family,
So as a candidate, you've had to attend a lot of events. Have you attended any parades?
Parades, I have not. We
Good for you.
recently started with the parades, and they've kind of conflicted. I'd love to attend them. I just have not had the opportunity.
What are some of the events you've been to?
We have been to backyard picnics. We have been to fundraisers. We have been to meets and greets. We've been to presentations where we introduce ourselves. It's been very interesting. It's been a lot of opportunity to meet people out there that I normally would not have had the opportunity to have conversations with.
And when you tell people that you're running for judge, do they start asking you questions, or they just go, oh, okay?
They asked me how I got there. They asked me how long it took. They asked me why I want to be a judge. And they asked me how it is to wear a black robe and say overruled. And I'm like, well, I don't say overruled a lot yet, but I do enjoy it. It is the best job ever.
Well, Ruth, we want to thank you very much for your time. It's been great. And like I told the audience, she is a very capable attorney. She is very well respected by both public defenders and state's attorneys and police chiefs who've worked with her for many years. And we hope that you get out and support Ruth. You have a punch number yet, Ruth?
Yes, I am punch 180.
Oh, if you can get out and punch 180.
Yes.
Do you have any slogan now for 180? Ruth Gudino 180?
Yeah.
Don't do a 180, do a 360. Don't do a 360, do a 180 with Ruth Gudino. How's that?
Or Gudino, go out there and go 180.
Thanks, Ruth. Hope you enjoyed it.
I did. It was amazing. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.